Amar and I were having a tip, who will do the satsang? Until the last minute I didn't tell him the topic, as if you are doing it. But anyway, I was joking. But anyway, I just wanted you all to see him and for him to see you all. Thank you for joining. And as Ayush mentioned, I often tell Amar, yesterday I was telling a small group of you, that I'm also a doctor and we both work together on that front. But Amar has many times had that inclination which I was able to fulfill, but I think is not the right dharma, shall I say, for him, that, oh, I'll also quit what I'm doing and I want to spend more time in the ashram and do the kind of service you are doing. But I told him it is different for each person. My master used to say true teaching is different for each individual. And I'm very, very happy with the way Amar has carried on his responsibilities, because it is really nice, and I'm sure there are many shining examples in your own Sangha. But interaction with one another really helps us get a lot of strength. I mean, you will recollect Mahavatar Babaji told Larry Mahashaya, he said, oh, I want to stay here, I want to stay with you. I remember now, this is my asana, my cave. And Mahavatar Babaji told him, no, go back to the place where you're working with your family, with your people, colleagues, and through you, an example will come to others. They will draw an inspiration. Because for all we know, Divine Mother may have very different plans from the kind of concept you and I may have of renunciation. We may think of renunciation, oh, I eat pizzas, I'm not a good renunciate. No, somebody asked Kriyanandaji, I eat fish, in a question answer round. And somebody says, what's your question? And the person said, can I be spiritual? He was treading the ground very cautiously. Swami says, yes. He said, can I find God? Swami said, absolutely. The one thing necessary is devotion. Work, develop devotion. Fish or no fish. So you will reach the goal. So again, we may for a long, long time think, oh, I am a fish eater, I am a doctor, I have so many children, but please do not misinterpret the scriptures. Master says the Gita will hopelessly try to express itself through the words, but in that Gita, Krishna says, I am the doubt of the doubters, that if you misinterpret me, if you approach me with doubt and confusion, that is what you will draw out of me. So it's very beautiful for us to have, of course, the live example of our masters. And this morning, I will share the topic. I'm going to speak from these two books. Swamiji wrote this book, Rays of the One Light. It is a parallel commentary from the Bhagavad Gita and the Bible, which, if you will remember, was Babaji's command to Sri Yukteswarji. He said, you will train a disciple and he will unite East and the West. And he said he will draw the two religions, examples showing the equality of two religions and also the true teaching. So we will read from that for week 6, which we are in, and then week 6 is a reading from Swamiji's book on affirmations. It's a very interesting topic which I am finding all of Mumbai involved in. So I'm so amazed by the divine timing of things. The topic is work, and Dhyanaji has waved her hand over Mumbai, and I see everybody is so joyfully busy. So we will discuss what Swamiji says about the book. But let's start, friends, with some chanting. And I'll just mention this. What are we really trying to accomplish this morning, Sunday mornings, or any free morning where we are not having outward responsibilities? It's a very, very good time to reflect on our life. We cannot help but first start with ourselves, think, okay, where is my life headed? But then this is a great time to see how was the past week, how might I convert the coming week, because our will, without our will, God is helpless. Like Krishna says, if you doubt me, well, I will remain a doubt for you. And I asked Swamiji once, just to verify, I knew his answer would be what was written in one of his books. Actually, the book was by Asha Prevar. And Swamiji told him many years ago, God has many, many good plans for this world, every place. But they do not see the light of the day because of the lack of willing instruments. And you say, how can that be? If, let's say, the CEO of a company has a good plan, they somehow make it possible that that plan is executed, whether people like it or not. But God is not like that. God has a plan, but He waits for willing instruments. We can see willing instruments over here. I asked Swamiji, sir, is that true? He said, oh yes. Without thinking, he said, oh yes. God has many plans, but because man is engrossed in his day-to-day reality, he offers rarely himself up. He says, we do not come to know what those are, and we often prefer to think of ourselves, I'm so small. God, how could God even know somebody like Aditya is existing in a remote corner of Pune or Mumbai? God is God after all, but we just distance him this way. On the other hand, if we say, Lord, like somebody asked Swamiji, how did you accomplish so much? 150 books, think about it, friends. Somebody should do the math of how many words are there in those books and divide it by the number of years Swamiji did the writing. It will be astounding, because somebody did that for Gandhiji and they found out that he was writing on an average 500 words a day. So it will be amazing to see how much wisdom Kriyanandaji absorbed and shared with us through those 150 books. But somebody asked him, how did you do this, and the music and 15,000 pictures and traveling and lecturing? I mean, talk of the lectures, thousands of lectures in different languages. What has been your prayer, sir, to God? He said, every morning I wake up with one prayer. Lord, thy will be done, not mine. And if we miss the point of why we are living, our subconscious prayer, I have seen in my own life, has often been, what's in store for me today, Lord? What have you got to give to me today? That what are my parents haven't called me for a long time. My birthday was forgotten by so many people. And food has not been to my preference in the common kitchen for so many days. And my sleep, I won't go there. How sleep deprived I have been, X, Y, Z. That we rarely give God a chance to say that, wait a minute, haven't I employed you, Aditya? Didn't I create you? And I will say, yes, I remember now. Then he says, then you should ask me, sir, what do you want to do? And I will take care of you also as a good employer. So anyway, when we talk of work, we will go into those subjects. But Sunday morning is a very, very good time to reflect on those things. Another very good time, Yogananda ji said, is after dinner. He said everybody after dinner should keep about 10 minutes aside by themselves. Think, where is my life going and how can tomorrow be much more brighter than today. So let's start with some chanting. And this will be an invocation followed by a chant to the Gurus, because Swamiji said God remains, an elusive reality. He is there. Master says when we do find him, he said we will realize he was such a conscious being that we had but to project a question to receive his answer. But till that happens, or for that to happen, I should say, we must go through the window of a guru where we talk to him. Swamiji said he never saw even a flicker of ego in Yoganandaji's eyes. Now, isn't that a beautiful window to talk to and focus on one of the master's eyes, their face, call them into your heart, into this room, and then let's sing this chant. Continuing to sit in this meditative silence, let us listen to Swamiji's words on the topic of work for week 6. Work should be done with a creative attitude, never for the sake of selfish gain, but for the chance it gives us to help create a better world. Those who work with the thought of pain live in the future. They lose the habit of living here and now, where alone true happiness can be found. Work should always be done as well as possible, not out of self-conceit or pride, but in gratitude for the free gift of life, of sunshine, of water, of air, and in gratitude simply for the God-given power to be useful to our fellow man. Now please affirm loudly with me, keeping your eyes closed and focusing on these words. I will do my work.
I will do my work.
Thinking of thee, Lord.
Thinking of thee, Lord.
I offer to thee.
I offer to thee
The very best that is in me.
the very best that is in me.
I will do my work.
I will do my work.
Thinking of Thee, Lord.
Thinking of Thee, Lord.
I offer to Thee
I offer to Thee
the very best that is in me.
the very best that is in me.
I will do my work.
I will do my work.
Thinking of Thee, Lord.
Thinking of Thee, Lord.
I offer to Thee
I offer to
the
Thee
very best that is in me.
the very best that is in me.
I will do my work.
I will do my work.
Thinking of Thee, Lord.
Thinking of Thee, Lord.
I offer to Thee
I offer to Thee
the very best that is in me.
the very best that is in me.
I will do my work. Thinking of Thee, Lord. I offer to Thee the very best that is in me. Now with deep focus at the spiritual eye, visualize yourself going through the day, waking up, attending to daily responsibilities of work, family, guru bhais, neighbors. Visualize yourself as you mentally repeat these words during those tasks. In your mind, repeat this. I will do my work thinking of Thee, Lord. I offer to Thee the very best that is in me. I will do my work thinking of Thee, Lord. I offer to Thee the very best that is in me. And think of God as joy. I will do my work thinking of Thee, Lord. I offer to Thee the very best that is in me. Now mentally allow this prayer to go to the Masters and to God to receive their blessing and response. Beloved Lord, who so wonderfully created the high snowy mountains, the bounding rivers, the colorful, fragrant flowers, the vast, heaving oceans, and the distant, glittering stars, manifest through me Thy perfect joy. Let's feel their response in our heart. Good morning once again, friends. Thank you for joining on this morning satsang. And I was just thinking as we were praying, this last prayer, Om chanting, that many times we may do it out of habit. We're not sure what is really happening. Maybe we're not feeling anything. Master said this is a very sensitive part of the body, so we should ideally feel it. And we are not the only ones, you might say, who are insensitive or many times. Of all people, Saint Francis of Assisi once was praying with his brothers. Actually, he was in seclusion this time, and he had a thought: is my prayer really doing any good? Here I am praying and thinking and visualizing and such. And good for him, Master said his devotion was of a very sweet kind. And Christ would manifest his body sometimes. And I think that kind of consolation was required for you and me also. Even if we go to La Verna, which is in Italy now, we can feel the power in that cave where Christ would appear to Saint Francis and sit on a rock. And Master said he would actually come to console him. Now this is a whole mystery in itself. First you create somebody like Saint Francis. Not just as a human being. Master said the soul is first put into form of a rock. Then he says, when that age is over, what is the age of a rock? It's as old as the world, the earth. That's some age to put on your resume. I am so old. But then that soul is released from there, we are sleeping, fortunately, in the rocks, Master said. Master was once at breakfast talking to the devotees, and he said, I remember all my incarnations, back to when I was a diamond. And if you would have said 800 years ago, 5,000 years ago, when I was a boy, girl, king, would have made more, you could relate to it. And he said, also, it's like somebody saying, I was a chair. That now maybe Anup can relate. He deals with jewels and gemstones. And think of it, you're handling a conscious being. Maybe you're handling a future avatar. That Master said that he was, a diamond. And then, of course, he explained because people were perplexed. I think, masters have a very interesting way of introducing their teachings. Christ, you would think, oh, Christ was so great, his teachings must be very confusing. But how did he teach? Through stories, through parables? Because it is not important to understand the person. It is not important really to understand the teaching. How much of it can you really experience? Master said it is not important to know God also. He said it's only important to love Him ever more deeply, because God, Swami used to towards the end of his life say, God is feeling. He says, God is feeling. Somebody asked him in Pune during a lecture, "Sir, have you seen God?" He said, "No." He says, "Thank you." He sat down. And then, people express their own doubts and restlessness sometimes, and the saints are like shock absorbers. They take these things very calmly, and then he gave a beautiful reply. He said, "But I see Him in you, and I feel Him all the time." Isn't that sweet? What does it mean to see God? And yes, it would be wonderful if we saw, but like one of our acharyas recently said, would you see God and have a dinner with Him? Or feel Him much rather, all the time? In feeling there's also hide and seek. That relationship, which when we re-establish, I should say, Master said, continues through eternity. I have not been able to, I think I'm not at fault, I've not been able to wrap my mind around it. Imagine a joy which starts, but will not end, and then remains ever new. I mean, we simply, I think, cannot wrap our mind around it. But that's why that is the gift God has kept for us. Anyway, coming back to that stone, or I should say the diamond we were talking about, Master said the soul is first put into the incarnation of a stone, and we don't feel anything, more or less. Then he said it is given more freedom of consciousness by allowing it to enter the plant kingdom. Now, this is under God's sway, as you can imagine. There's no I or you who decide how this moves. God is very much in control. And then the plants, you can see they are moving. And Swamiji used to say, go for a walk. If you sit actually in a rock cave or on a huge rock, you can see, you can take on that consciousness of immobility, firmness, commitment and loyalty and such. And then when you see a plant, it's so supple, gentle, and it's as if sometimes they are communicating with you. And many naturalists have almost gone into a state of trance, being in the woods and such. And then Master said, after many incarnations of one plant and the other, the soul enters the animal kingdom, where it spends 5 to 8 million incarnations. Now please remember, we are talking fortunately of again a state of consciousness which does not have much of an ego. Oh, I, Aditya the ant, and you the rabbit, and she the monkey, and why are we here in this forest? No, we are just there. And the Master said, people say, oh, this dog is hurt and I should do something, and they lose their peace for day and night. He said the dog must be limping, but he does not even think that he has perhaps a broken leg. It may say that, yeah, something is broken over there. And, it's like almost, whose leg is that which is broken? Because the sense of I is not there. When the sense of I is not strong, the happiness and the emotions and the, you might say, pain, suffering is very non-specific. It is somewhere, but it's not belonging. They are not personally affected by it actually so much. But of course, they are affected to quite a degree, and horses and dogs, Master said, by extension you could say cats, which, Master once told Dr. Lewis, he said, your cat is so refined, and especially living with you two yogis, its next incarnation will be a human life. And similarly, of the soul, I should say, not so much the cat as the form, the soul will move into the human incarnation. But then he would say dogs and horses are closest. And finally, we come into the human form, and there we get, you might say, the freedom of making decisions, a brain which is so evolved to see. Swamiji used to say, consciousness finally filters down into mon, the mind, buddhi, intelligence, ahankar, ego, I, and then chitta. How am I feeling today? It can be a great gift, because finally, if you see it from God's point of view, now why did He create this? Many great saints. Buddha himself, Swami used to remind us, would tell his disciples, the less time you spend fretting over that question, why did God create us? He said, the better it is, instead work on the positive side of how much joy I can feel and how can I expand that. But it is God who filters down in that, and then slowly he tries to come out of it. And then you think of St. Francis, where I started, that here is St. Francis praying to Christ, and Christ manifests himself, and then he allows him to say, refine his consciousness. And I will talk about work. How did St. Francis do in his work? Because that is very directly linked to our caste system, actually, which many of us often don't want to think about, but I think it is one of the greatest gifts that the saints would give us, provided we know how to use it. But coming back to St. Francis praying during his seclusion, wondering, am I doing any good? And Christ appeared to him, and he said, one day when you and your brothers are with me in heaven, I will reveal to you how many countless souls were helped by each of your prayers, by inviting me into situations, by inviting me over there. And that says quite a bit. And he came back, he shared with his fellow brothers and monks. He says, take heart, brothers, the Lord has revealed to me how much our thought for others counts, on the other side. Now, I read about work, and sometimes we come on a spiritual path, and Swamiji used to give the example of a very devoted fellow disciple in Mount Washington. And Swami said that this monk, this brother of mine, had deep devotion. Master himself had said, and you could say actually he was a saint. And Swami said he had deep, deep devotion. And Master would give him some work, that can you do this work? And he would go and just about do something and quickly come back. And then Master would give him some other work, and he would do some kind of some mediocre job. And he would say, Guruji, I've done it, Master, I did it. And Master would look at it and say, well, okay, good. On the other hand, Master would tell Swamiji to do something. Walter, can you do this? And Swami couldn't contain himself. He would try to really do the best possible work. And he said that the thought in his mind was that if Master has asked me, if God himself is asking me to do something, I should give my very best. And he says that actually is the right attitude. He said he would sometimes envy this other monk for his simplicity and simple devotion. He said because it didn't matter to him whether the work was even finished or not. And he said, on the other hand, my heart and my dharma was such that Master entrusted me with a lot of responsibility in future work. And Swamiji had a very, very nice balance. I think he was also capable, that's why Master said those things to him, of creating diligence without losing the heart quality or the devotion behind it. Now, we go through work every day. What is the attitude with which we work? Now, of course, this is a deeper subject of why are we in the work we are, to what degree is it helping us, because Swami writes over there, many times we just work for pay. Now, on one level, that is, if we are working just with that thought, I think we are trying to tell God, since you won't be able to take care of me, I have to continue earning my salary. Which is not at all how it is. He who created galaxies, he who, as St. Francis said, provides the birds and the animals with their bodies, nourishment and all, why would he not provide you and me what is it that we need? But then the next question comes, what should I do? Since we have to do something, the whole of the Bhagavad Gita on one level is the call to action, karma yoga. And how should we act? Remember this, friends, whatever action we do, that really does not matter. Somebody asked Swami Kiranandaji once, what would Master allow the disciples to do? What was the spectrum of the work? Swami said, just about anything, so long as their consciousness was remaining uplifted. You could be a singer, you could be a dancer, you could be an actor. Master had many disciples who were actually in Hollywood. You could be a housewife, you could be a doctor, you could be a monk, you could be a yogi, whatever. Is your consciousness expanding day by day? Is the work that you're giving not draining you of energy, but enhancing your willpower, your creativity? Where is creativity centered in our body? At the prefrontal lobe, exactly the spot where we try to feel the Guru's grace, we try to meditate, we try to feel consciousness. And when we are doing our work, you will see that is why Rajarsi Janakananda is such a shining example before us, because he was a wonderful leading businessman with creativity, willpower, At the same time, he was Master's foremost disciple. And Master said, when somebody excels in their field, business, sports, you might say by extension, with the right attitude, it is very easy for them. They just have to put their thought into becoming a yogi, and they can. Scientists also, for that matter, that they have such a sharp brain. The work they are doing does not matter. We may say, oh, you are doing this work. I feel for you. You're not able to meditate so much. Master said, when it comes to closing time, shall I say, he says there's hardly any difference between work and meditation, especially if you're doing the work for Guru. Jyotishji, our Brahmachari, once had a reading, astrological reading, and there were many things that were mentioned, and one by one they were coming true. And at one point the person said, you've never done a job, never taken a job or business. And Jyotishji said, no, pause. That is not correct. He said, I have done business in the past, a big business actually. He said, what was the business? He said, I used to make jewelry, I used to make incense, I used to make perfumes and such to sell at our ashram. And he said, now, did you do it for yourself or did your Guru tell you to do it? He said, Swami Kriyanandaji told me to do it. He says, then that's not business. That is Guru Seva. And then Jyotishji said, that's true. When the time came for other people who were ready to take it on, I just handed it over to them. And I moved on to other responsibilities. Now that's a beautiful lesson in non-attachment, in faith, in confidence of God, that when you need to earn money, we talk of energy and magnetism, we should be able to go out, we should have that kind of energy to go and make some money. But when making money, shall I say, it's not the topic, or work itself becomes something which is not helping you feel greater inner freedom, we have to review that situation and say, Lord, how can I derive benefit from it? And often, friends, it's not a matter of the environment over there, but the attitude in our mind. Yogananda ji had a disciple once who used to work. She used to like to work. She would come up and say, okay, what work do I have? And Master was giving her work, and he said, then you tell her, you work too hard. You should take some rest. And she said, yes, sir, others have been telling me the same. I think I should do that. And then the same evening, he gave her more responsibilities, more work. She said, well, that's strange. But next day, he told her, you work too much. Please try to work less and rest more. She said, yes, sir, yes. And then he would give her new projects through someone. And this went on for a few days. And finally, they were both sitting in a room, and Master said, you work too much. And she was totally puzzled by that. She thought about it. She said, sir, I have an idea. Why don't we replace the word work with service? And Master looked at her with a laugh and a smile. He says, that's good, you get the point. Now, who are you really working for? Master asked, who are you working for? Like I said in the beginning, you wake up, Lord, why do I have to go to work? Well, maybe to awaken somebody to spirituality. Maybe to help counsel somebody who's contemplating suicide. Maybe to help somebody understand that if you work with laziness, you are a Shudra, even though you may be born in a Pandit or a Brahmin family. And a Shudra consciousness will never bring you the one thing you're looking for, happiness. Amar, can you give me a glass of water? Aditya, you're sitting there doing nothing, why don't you take it yourself? That's Shudra consciousness. Amar, will you give me a glass of water? Yes, but will you make me tea after that? That's Vaishya consciousness. I will give you water, what will you give me? Now that's better, because I get water at least. And I'm happy to make him tea. Amar, will you give me water? Of course I will give you water. Here it is. No thought of what I will get. And when offering water, offering banking services, offering medical care, serving your children, praying for others, running a country, Mahatma Gandhi. No thought of self. He used to tell people who would join him, he said, you could get sticks and jail terms and lose your life and be separated from family. You have two options. Either you serve yourself or you serve the nation. And God, he said, because I think God wants to free the country right now, which is what Master said. It was the time for India to become free. He said, choose one of the two. And it's fine, both are fine by me, but be clear. That was a Kshatriya consciousness. I am going to give. Now why? Some people will say he was fanatic. That is too much. Why are some people like that? They are like that because they are deeply selfish about their happiness. Their happiness would go the moment they think of themselves. And Swami would say it's very hard for the world to understand or make out what they are really trying to do. People think there must be something selfish. He's not telling me. I'm sure there is an ulterior motive behind this. Whereas all of us would not be happy actually. I was reading Master's teachings. He said you cannot find happiness if you're selfish. You will find some happiness in selfishness, but not a lasting inner freedom unless you stop thinking of yourself. And finally, of course, I want to now quote St. Francis' example that he was, and like I said, don't feel bad if you find yourself, because see, the caste system, that's why I said it's not hereditary for sure, and it moves. We always move from one spectrum to the other. And St. Francis, when he was, sitting in his shop, making money, more money, his father was actually the richest cloth merchant in Assisi in Italy. And one day a very beautiful, nice, noble lady came, and she was buying clothes from his store. And at that time a beggar came. He asked for some alms. And St. Francis said, shoo, away with you, go! The lady looked at him, and she thought to herself, what despicable behavior. She said, wait a minute, sir. And she opened her money purse and gave him some money. She said, have a nice day. And St. Francis was touched by that. He said, wait, sir. And he opened his chest of money and took out the entire money and he placed it in the hands. I said, oh, beggar. And the beggar was the happiest man in Assisi that morning. But I think St. Francis was happier still. And he thanked her. She later became his foremost lady disciple, Sister Clare. And she had come with her family to shop over there. And he would say to her, thank you for opening my eyes. And then from that point, he started helping other people and with the health challenges, with financial challenges, clothing and whatnot, till he came to the point. And he was one day weeping by himself. And he had read the Bible somewhat, so he knew who to pray to. He said, why am I not happy? Why am I not happy? And he heard the voice of Christ. He said, oh Francis, how could you ever be happy without me? And he understood, and that is, friends, whether we, going back to that spectrum of a stone and a leaf and an animal and finally lives as human beings, we will all have to arrive at this by our own discrimination, by our own understanding, by understanding the lives of the great masters. And why? Is there a direction to humanity? Is there a direction in this universe? Is there a propelling force which wants me to be happy but will not push me in that direction? I have to choose it. And for that I have to sharpen my own discrimination, my understanding, my faith. And when those things are, and the one person you work with, St. Francis worked with Christ. Master said his devotion was so great that on one level we don't know who his guru was. But Master said he was one of those rare, very rare people whose devotion drew Christ itself, who he considered his guru. And hence that power was then transmitted through St. Francis to other people. But I want to also read from this book, Rays of the One Light, because this is about guru-disciple relationship. Because when we think of that highest state of happiness, it's not the kind which comes, as I said, from a food or some small act for ourselves. Those kind of fleeting happiness, maybe you can say, I can afford. But when we're talking of lasting happiness, this is how it comes. Week 6, the importance of soul receptivity. Truth is one and eternal. Realize oneness with it in your deathless self within. The following commentary is based on the teachings of Paramhansa Yogananda. Chapter 1 of the Gospel of St. John states, but as many as received him, to them gave he the power to become the sons of God, even to them that believe on his name. This was a passage Paramhansa Yogananda often quoted to his disciples. Be in tune, he would tell them. Delusion can't touch you if you will keep in tune. A few of you will fall, he said once, but it needn't be if you would stay in tune. Of a disciple who became highly advanced, even though she didn't meditate much, he said, she got there by attunement. To one who found meditation difficult, he said, I will meditate for you as long as you stay in tune. Truth is a state of consciousness, not a well-worded definition. It is in that state of consciousness above all that our lives are transformed. Therefore, the Bhagavad Gita says in the 10th chapter, to those who are ever attached to me, and please associate this reading with what I said about the reply Christ gave to Saint Francis and the state of the Brahman consciousness. To those who are ever attached to me and who worship me with love, I impart discernment by means of which they attain me. Out of my love for them, I, the divine within them, set alight in them the radiant lamp of wisdom, thereby dispelling the darkness of their ignorance. Who gave us ignorance? God. Ignorance was created by God. He made us, as I said, in a limited consciousness form and then progressively expanded it. But now that we have reached the point where discernment is, shall I say, shining brightly sometimes, sometimes less so, his expectation from us, it would not be when you were a stone or perhaps any lesser form, but now his expectation is that we open. Swami used to say that grace is always there. Grace alone can bring enlightenment in the end. He says, but our job, your job and mine, is to part those curtains, is to develop that understanding. That understanding partly comes not from yoga practice. Yoga is more for actually attaining the goal, but the clarity for the goal comes through Sankhya. That why should I do yoga? Because life is only so long, health is only with you so long, clarity of mind is only with you so long. Sometimes as a doctor I think of this, that when we are a child, we are a clean state in our brain. We have no concept of mama, baba, car, X, Y, Z. Sometimes you lose all your memory. One of Master's disciples, Kamala Silva, she lost practically every memory except for one, that she remembered she would open the gate and thousands and hundreds of people would come for Master's lecture. And then she would again and again say, I used to open the gates, people would come, Master would give the talk, and people would leave. Then people said, tell us another story. She would say, I would open the gates, people would come, Master would give the talk, and then they would leave. But he was recently telling us, he said, but there was so much joy in her. She had this smile, which was a victorious smile, because she had held Master once. She said, sir, I want God in this life. And Master would not answer. She said, I want God in this life. So please promise me, because Master was talking of leaving the body, and she wanted that word from him. And one day she said, I want God soon. He said, are you sure? And she said, yes. He said, it won't be easy. She said, no, I want him. Master said, okay. And then Swami said she had a very difficult life. It needn't be so. But in her case, Master could see her karma was very hard. Her mother was a wonderful disciple, so was Kamala Silva. But he could see there were more challenges. But if you're ready to burn the challenges in smoke, then the Master is all there to help us. And to that end, we have to apply ourselves. As I said in the beginning, it's a deeper subject. It will require each of us to go home, discriminate. Of course, Mumbai is in a wonderful flow right now. We hear such good things of, expansion of work. Yesterday, we dedicated a meditation group at Satish Ji's house. I hear 11 more are waiting. That is amazing, unprecedented almost. So give it your heart, give it your everything. Keep a balance. And we started, I was talking about emerging. Keep that balance. How can you work? How can you see your work as service? A student recently took discipleship with us. And I said, sir, how did you come? He said, I was coughing one day and the cough was not going. So I went to Vita Life Clinic and then I met Dr. Mansi. She had autobiography for yogi and she told me next day is a level 1 class. And I came and Amarji was giving the class. And then this happened and I'm so happy that Christ has led me to this. He's a Christian. Christ has led me to this path. never underestimate the power of God. Yoganandaji many times used to say, we're talking about work. Somebody asked him, how did you do so much? He said, I have not done any of it. He said, I have asked my Guru to use me as an instrument. And coming back to that story, does God need instruments? Yes. The Devas and the angels are nothing but God's instruments. He actually even creates the universe, not in a spoof, Master said. He creates it, spoof I should say, he creates it through instruments. He works, and human beings are his highest instruments. So every day, how often are we asking him, what would you like to think? What would you like to do? How would you like to live? If you were in my body, how would you conduct yourself? And I think that is when we reach the point where in 2011, Swamiji was having a TOA in 2012. And somebody asked him, just 3 years with Yogananda ji, and how did you write so many books? How do you know him so well? And Swamiji said, by always communing with him. He wrote a letter towards the end of his life on his birthday, and he said, I have led my life with one question till now. What would Master do in every situation? He said, but I see now that is not enough. So my prayer to him is, how would you feel, sir? And what thoughts would you think? Make me think the same way. And then he said, now I cannot say where Kriyananda ends and Yogananda begins. I think that is where real happiness is found. Flickers on the way, but the real happiness, as hard as it seems, Master, all the saints, they come because it is not easy. We need their help. But in our work, in our meditation, wise is he who includes them, who feels they are with him, they are on his side, and then serves as an instrument for their work. Thank you, friends. Let's meditate for a brief